Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm great. Great day. Great to be with you, Nate. Looking forward to the show. Got some nice topics here. Did my homework. Ready to go.
That's always good. We got some breaking news that's going to come a little bit later in the show when it comes to the New York Jets. But let's start with the conclusion of one of the most back and forth topics we have ever had on this show, and that comes with Justin Fields. He has been traded for a interesting pick. He got traded for a 2025 conditional 6th-round pick that becomes a 4th-round pick if he plays at least 51% of the snaps for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024. But with Russell Wilson being the proclaimed starter for the Steelers, it looks like that won't even happen. So the Bears were able to get Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick, or rather the Steelers were able to get Justin Fields for only a 6th-round pick. I want to know, what do you think? Do you think the Steelers got an absolute steal for such a great talent like Justin Fields?
I think you say that sarcastically.
Well, a little bit.
You know, I think they did get a steal. I actually do. I think the Steelers got a steal. And I was a little it was a little weird the way the draft pick went. And generally, somebody who plays well, or when you traded him to the Steelers, you would think it would be a 4th-round pick if he plays 51%, and if he doesn't, then it's a 6th-round pick.
Just a 6th-round
It's just
pick.
backwards. They're getting a 6th-round pick, and then if he plays better, they get a 4th-round pick. I never seen a situation like that.
It's
That's
conditional.
odd.
That's why.
It's weird. I mean, it's conditionally backwards, I think. You would think he would have gone for a 4th-round pick, but if he doesn't play 51% of the snaps, it goes to a 6th-round pick. That means he's less valuable.
Absolutely.
Right? Instead, it's backwards.
Trey Lance got better than that.
I've never seen
Trey
something
Lance
like
got
that.
better.
Is that the kind of pick that
Trey Lance, I believe, got a 4th-round pick, and Justin Fields got a 6th. I'm calling it a 6th-round pick,
Yeah.
but
I will be a 6th-round pick because he's not going to play 51% of the snaps unless Russell Wilson gets hurt, and because Russell Wilson's going to be the starter there, and they're even talking about giving Russell Wilson a long-term deal. I can't believe that, but we're going to talk about that a little later. So I know that the Bears, from what I heard, wanted a 2nd-round pick and a late 2025 pick. That's what they were hoping for. And there were at least 6 teams interested in Justin Fields, mainly as a backup. But I think they did. I think they wanted to do what was right by Justin Fields. I mean, he did try hard for them for 3 years. Didn't always have the best offensive weapons to play with. And I think they did do right by him, right? He doesn't have to go through training camp with Caleb Williams there throwing the ball around and making it look like there's a competition for the quarterback position. And he goes to a team that has an older quarterback, so maybe he does get a chance to play if Russell Wilson doesn't play well and doesn't get a longer-term deal. So I think that was a fair way to go. They parted on good terms. That's a good thing. They could have waited. If they'd waited, maybe another team's quarterback gets hurt in training camp or something, and they give Fields a chance to start. But that's not the way it went down. And I do think it would have been tough for Caleb Williams and Justin Fields if they were both in training camp together. They avoid an awkward situation, and I do understand that a lot of the players were supportive of Justin Fields and were hoping that he would be back. So they avoided a locker room controversy too. So I think it was the Bears handled it right. They just didn't get much. And the Steelers, I think they did get a little bit of a steal. Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, Justin Fields has had some he's had some good games out there, and Caleb Williams is going to walk in there with a lot more talent than Justin Fields ever had, right? He's going to have Keenan Allen as a wide receiver. DJ Moore was there for 1 year with Justin Fields and played well. They brought in DeAndre Swift. They have Gerald Everett at tight end, and they brought in 2 new linemen, two new offensive linemen too. So, maybe there'll be a little more protection for the quarterback. So I think Caleb Williams has dealt a lot better hand than Justin Fields got when he first started with the Bears. So We'll
That
see.
is true. That is true. And that's kind of indisputable at this point that Caleb Williams maybe has a better start than Justin Fields has in any 3 of his seasons. So Caleb Williams might be in a situation where, you know what, he has a higher chance to succeed right out of the gate than Justin Fields had. But I want to, take a minute or two here just to say my piece, because I was on this before anybody else would. Adam Schefter went on a ESPN Chicago radio show, I believe, and said that he thought Justin Fields might get a first-round pick. What? That didn't make sense from the get-go. A 10-28 record is, I think it's like 60-something total turnovers over the course of his entire career. The number that I keep bringing up, last year in the fourth quarter, he was dead last in basically every stat that matters: completion percentage, passing yards. He had the most turnovers in the fourth quarter, as well as the lowest passer rating in the fourth quarter. So the fact that you can get a first-round pick out of a guy that doesn't perform very well, that creates self-inflicting wounds, to me, that never made any sense. The second-round pick was interesting because I feel like in order to get a second-round pick, the team would need to be extremely desperate in order to get Justin Fields. So I said a third. And I got a lot of blowback from that, saying, well, the unfair situation the Bears put him in, so much talent, went on and on and on, and how bad that take was. Well, if you look at it now, you're right. That was a horrible take. I was too generous on what teams were expecting of Justin Fields, because he ended up, I'm not even calling it a fourth-round pick, potentially. For me, just based on the situation, unless Russell Wilson throws 10 interceptions with no touchdowns in the first 3 games, Russell Wilson will be the starter for at least more than 50% of the snaps. So essentially, the Steelers got Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick. Not looking great. Really not looking great for the people that thought he was a second-round pick or even a first-round pick or thought the Bears would keep him. Now, it actually looked like that up until basically the 11th hour before they had to make a decision, and teams were filling in their backup role spots, and other teams were citing potential starters like the Vikings and the Raiders were with Sam Darnold and Gardner Minshew, respectively. Justin Fields is kind of left on the back burner. And lo and behold, the Steelers, when they traded away Kenny Pickett, it was weird because they said that they were trying to build up Kenny Pickett to potentially be the next future quarterback of the Steelers. Lo and behold, they traded him to the Eagles, so Russell Wilson was the only quarterback on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster up until, I believe this was Saturday, they made the trade. Now Justin Fields will be the backup. 6th-round pick. I think based on his athletic ability, based on the potential that it might be, that he might turn into a good quarterback, especially with Arthur Smith as his OC, who runs a nice run-style offense, or at least he tried to in Atlanta, I think Justin Fields can grow. But did I ever think for a second he was a first-round pick worthy in trade value? No. Second round? No. From the get-go, I said third, and apparently I was too generous because he was basically worth a 6th-round pick. That's Mac Jones. And I'm surprised Trey Lance got better than Justin Fields and all these other quarterbacks that got traded in that same draft class. But it's fascinating that draft class was actually arguably one of the worst quarterback draft classes we've ever seen in a very, very long time. Only one quarterback is still on the team that drafted him, and that's Trevor Lawrence, who regressed last season. So that's shocking. Mac Jones was supposed to have the highest floor but the lowest ceiling because he was the most NFL-ready quarterback. Zach Wilson had a lot of potential. Trey Lance was the biggest unknown, but he was 6'4" and 220, and normally that's a nice prototypical quarterback who was also incredibly athletic. Trevor Lawrence, he was the best quarterback in that draft class, hands down. And then you got Justin Fields, who was a pretty damn good quarterback in Ohio State when he was in college. But that draft class coming in, there was a lot of potential there. And yet one quarterback remains on his team, on his original team.
Yeah, and Trevor Lawrence didn't play that well last year. Right? But he had some injuries, so.
But it's weird, though. It seems
but
like
he could make the playoffs the year before.
Also.
He looked like he was rounding into franchise quarterback shape, right?
He shouldn't have won that playoff game, though. The Chargers were whooping him, and then it's a Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley complete collapse. I don't think they put up another point in the rest of that game. They might have kicked one field goal, but they did basically nothing in the second half. But this is interesting because the fit, and you actually, we've talked about before because Albert Breer about a month ago said that the Steelers would be the best fit for Justin Fields, and we talked about it. And then the last time we did the show, so on Friday, you said Justin Fields to the Steelers. That it was one of your 3 teams that you said would be a good fit for it.
Yeah, I think I said I thought the Steelers would be the one too.
Right, yeah. And that just made the most sense based on the circumstances that it came through, where it was Russell Wilson and then nobody is their backup.
Yeah.
Now, the big question is, what are they going to do with Justin Fields? What's the point? And we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but Russell Wilson is the definite starter for this team. Now you have Justin Fields. Are you expecting Russ not to be there long term? And then Justin Fields comes through the ranks up until your starter? Or is it going to be maybe a Mac Jones route where you let him learn under Mike Tomlin, let him learn under a veteran quarterback? In this case, though, Mac Jones is the same draft class, so it's not exactly the same. But then you're using him as a growth piece to then trade off of him or trade him away a little bit later. I think that honestly is closer to the realistic outcome than it is Justin Fields becomes your starter in, let's say, 3 years from now.
You think he's going to be traded away?
I think Justin Fields will not be the official starter for the Steelers in 2 years' time. Because based on what's coming out, it seems like Russell Wilson is going to be their long-term answer.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Russell Wilson hasn't played a snap yet for the Steelers.
That is true.
He's looks like he's lost a lot of what he had when he was with the Seahawks. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Didn't Mac Jones went for a 6th round too?
He went for a 6th round pick.
Yeah, his quarterbacks. You're right. That draft class that looked very promising, looking like duds now.
Yeah, I would absolutely say so. Let's get into our next topic here. This is interesting. So this is the breaking news that broke about a half hour to an hour before the show. So we were originally going to talk about Tyron Smith going to the Jets, but now it comes out that it looks like Mike Williams, former Chargers wide receiver, he's headed to the New York Jets on a 1-year deal worth up to $15 million. This is a pretty big addition. Allen Lazard supposedly is on the trade block for the New York Jets after he was one of the worst wide receivers last season. He had drop issues. He was supposed to be Aaron Rodgers' guy. Rodgers gets hurt, and now the Jets are stockpiling on picks, and the acquisitions they made over the course of this offseason have been very, very impressive. They got Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith and Jake Hansen and John Simpson, Tyrod Taylor to be a backup quarterback, and now they got Mike Williams today to be another wide receiver to that growing arsenal of Jets offensive pieces. So it's quite an impressive start to free agency, or rather we're kind of in the thick of it right now. But so far the Jets have been making the moves that count. I want to know, because we thought the hype for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets wouldn't be that serious, just based on, Rodgers, what he looked like in his last year, and now we see the outcome of this and the changes that they've made to sort of bolster that offensive skill. Do you think now that the Jets could be, considered serious playoff and then Super Bowl contenders in 2024?
Oh, you asked me if they were a Super Bowl contender.
Well, you could start with playoffs.
Serious Super Bowl contender. I would say they may have a shot at the playoffs, but I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. This reminds me a lot of last year in a lot of ways. They added all kinds of players, right? Wow, we're going to the Super Bowl. This is our year. The Delvin Cook, he's there. They got him on the team. He's saying, this could be it. We're going to go to the Super Bowl, right? He was a bust with them. They let him go, right, before the year was even over. And a lot of their other players, of course, Aaron Rodgers got hurt 4 snaps into the season, and was done for the year. The Jets, I'm sorry, they're a snake-bitten team. I don't see how they make it this year. I think they're going to have Hackett as their offensive coordinator, Saleh as their head coach. Everybody's calling for their heads here right late in the season when it was obvious that they were not going to make the playoffs. So I don't see them being a serious Super Bowl contender. They might sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, but I don't see them winning the division. I think Mike Williams is a nice piece to add, right? $15 million is a nice salary for him. He's 29 years old. He's had 2 years and 7 where he had 1,000 yards. He's a physical specimen. He looks the part, that's for sure. And I think the Chargers got rid of him more for his cap space reasons rather than his performance. So I think he's a good pickup for the Jets. They needed another quality wide receiver, as Lazard really disappointed, and the other they don't have much depth at wide receiver. So we'll see what happens, but I don't see him as serious Super Bowl contenders, Nate. I'm sorry.
And I do.
You do?
I do.
You're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Well, last year I thought it was completely bogus that the Jets fans were like, this is our year, win the division, long playoff run, And Aaron Rodgers is coming off arguably the worst season he's ever had in his NFL career, his historic first ballot Hall of Fame caliber career. But this season, this upcoming season, I do. Because I'm going to show the free agent hits again. What they needed severely was offensive linemen and another wide receiver to help out Garrett Wilson. Well, all their major, offseason changes, at least offensively, were lo and behold, offensive linemen, a backup quarterback because Zach Wilson's probably going to be out of there, and Mike Williams, a wide receiver. Now, the major pet peeve for the Jets to sign a receiver like Mike Wilson is his injury history. The guy has had like 10 injuries since he entered the league. The last time he played in the NFL, which was last year, in week 3, he tore his ACL. He's had severe, injury concerns throughout his entire career. According to DraftSharks.com, his injury risk, his chance of injury in 2024 is 80%, which basically that's based on the percentage chance that he misses at least 2 quarters. His injury chance per game is 9%. That's in the red as very high risk. So this is kind of I'm not going to say it's low risk, low reward, or rather low risk, high reward. This is both high risk and high reward because not only does he have a higher injury risk, you're also paying him a pretty penny. $15 million for a wide receiver who you don't even know will play the entirety of his time with you. He's never played a full season. He's always missed at least one game throughout his entire career, but he has been a very, very viable piece and a great deep threat for Justin Herbert when he was with the Chargers. And now he goes to the Jets, who Alan Lazard, thanks to Aaron Rodgers, he was the only reason why he was on the Jets. That was a complete miss. Now, all you really have besides him at that time, besides, Garrett Wilson, is now Mike Williams. You still have, right now, you still have Alan Lazard, but supposedly the Jets are thinking about trading off him. You have Xavier Gipson, who's more of a return guy than he is a true wide receiver. You have Jason Brownlee, who, these guys are really nobodies here. You have a lot of nobodies, but at least you have a secondary piece to help out Garrett Wilson. Not only that, Morgan Moses, who was previously on the Jets, he's back. John Simpson, starting offensive guard. You have a couple nice pieces, nice acquisitions who are actually pretty good in the run game. Last year, Morgan Moses was the 10th best offensive tackle out of 81. Tyron Smith, Cowboys, longtime Cowboy, phenomenal offensive lineman. He was 4th out of 81 offensive tackles. So you're getting pieces that are very, very good and will help you a lot in the run game. A number of these offensive linemen are great run blockers, which helps out Breece Hall. So I think this offense is looking better because it's playing to their weaknesses. It's building a weakness into a strength. Rodgers needed wide receivers and offensive linemen. He already has one, which is Garrett Wilson. He wanted his buddy Alan Lazard. And he also got Randall Cobb, who once again, like I said, he's a mummified person right now. He doesn't move. I think he had, 3 catches throughout the entire season. So they're building up into their strength. I think, personally, I don't hate Tyler Conklin. You could get a good tight end. Who knows? But right now, you built up your offensive line. You built up your wide receiver core. And you still have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. And in case Rodgers gets hurt again, you have a viable backup quarterback in Tyrod Taylor. So if everything goes right, and not only that, their schedule is not that bad. Let's show it. It's the road games are a couple that are a little bit dangerous, and really that's, you play your division obviously twice. But the Patriots are going to suck. I think the Bills are going to regress severely based on the amount of losses they had. The Dolphins, I think that's going to be an interesting one because I think they bolster their team very, very well. The Jaguars, I think, will be hit and miss because you just lost your wide receiver 1. You replaced him with Gabe Davis, but Gabe Davis has never been a wide receiver 1. The 49ers, obviously, are going to be great. Titans, we have no idea. Cardinals are probably going to be terrible again. Steelers are starting Russ. Do people trust Russ? Who knows? The Vikings, right now, they don't have a quarterback. And then, obviously, your division again. The Texans, I think that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, they won't beat the Texans.
The Colts, Anthony Richardson, he right now could be injury prone. He likes to run into contact. He's got hurt, I think, 3 times in his rookie year, one that knocked him out for the rest of the season. The Rams could be an interesting, difficult team again. Seahawks, Geno Smith regressed last season. Who knows what they're going to be? And then the Broncos. Right now, they don't have a quarterback. And still, they gave up arguably the best wide receiver that they have in Jerry Jeudy. You could say Cortland Sutton, but they gave up a very, very nice wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So, not a horrible schedule.
What I'd say in the first 5 games, right? They go...
well, this is not their schedule. This is just the opponents.
Oh, okay.
The schedule comes out, July,
All right. Well,
August.
just going through these, I would say they beat the Patriots, right?
Both times? Yes.
Both times.
So that's 2 wins.
I think that's 2 wins. They lose to the Dolphins both times, I think.
Interesting.
They lose to the Bills. They might beat the Bills once, okay? So
it's a
give them
split.
1 win there.
3-3 so far.
The Jaguars, they probably will beat them.
4-3.
San Francisco, not going to beat them.
4-4.
The Titans, I think they could win. The Cardinals, I think they can win that. I don't think they're going to beat the Steelers. They might beat the Vikings. That's 7 wins.
7-5.
They aren't going to beat the Texans. They probably could beat the Colts. They're not going to beat the Rams. They might beat the Seahawks.
You're saying might. So is that a yes or a no just for the sake of this? Because right now we got 8-7.
I would say yes. They're going to beat them.
9-7.
I don't. You know what? The Broncos, I don't think they'll beat them. I think by the end of the season, the Broncos will be playing much better. And
not a chance. So you're saying they go 9-8.
Okay, maybe you're right. So they get 10 wins.
Based on your prediction, they go 9-8. If you think the Broncos could upset them if it's late in the year.
I'll change that. I think they'll beat the Broncos.
Okay, so they go 10-7.
So they get in as a wild card.
Which is not bad. And I think you go up against a Super Bowl might push it, but I do think they can make a deep playoff run with the amount of talent that they have. And this is even pre-draft. They can go out and get another offensive lineman. They can go out and get one of the better receivers in the draft. They might add to their defense that was number 4 last season. Mm-hmm. There are pieces that still need to be added because we haven't even hit the draft yet.
Okay, well, I don't think that show the pickups that they got this season so far. Okay, so the offensive line, they needed that big time, right? And they really stacked it, right? They got 4 players offensive line.
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor to me is he's nothing special, and he's very injury prone.
That is true.
So if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Tyrod Taylor's in there. He won't be in there long. He gets hurt every team he's with. He winds up getting hurt. It'll be Tommy DeVito.
Well, right now, Tommy DeVito, there's a report out saying that he might not even make the roster next season. Oh. So, that's going to Fox Sports. Tommy DeVito is unlikely to be on the Giants roster next year.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how good these offensive linemen are. Morgan Moses is a name, right? And Tyron Smith is a name. So.
John Simpson started for the Ravens. Yeah. Jake Hansen started 7 games for the Jets last season. So they got an
all-brand-new offensive line.
Not entirely. Jake Hansen was there last season. He started 7 games. And by the way, he was also on the Packers back in 2021, 2022 when Rodgers was there. So he's familiar with Rodgers. He didn't start any games, but he's at least familiar with his quarterback. So, and he could be the starter right now. The Jets depth chart does not have him starting currently. He backs up Elijah Vera Tucker, who was probably their best offensive lineman. And not only that, they got rid of some detrimental pieces. Dwayne Brown, too old, injury. And then you also have Mekhi Becton, who you let go because he's not good. And he's also injury prone. So you got rid of some discrepancies. You added some good pieces, some top pieces. Morgan Moses, like I said, he was number 10 out of 81 tackles, and Tyron Smith was number 4 out of 81 tackles. And then you had Tyrod Taylor, who I like, who ran the Giants' offense better, who people refuse to give you that credit with, at least, even though you could see it and be like, no, he could run Brian Dable's offense. Daniel Jones is just that bad. He looked good. He could have upset the Eagles in that game if he got put in sooner. He was 1 throw away and 1 2-point conversion away from winning that game, or at least tying it. So I think these are great. I think these are phenomenal acquisitions. I mean, Mike Williams, he's had a couple 1,000-yard seasons. Back in 2019, he led in yards per reception.
He gets hurt a lot.
He does get hurt. According to, like I said, 80% chance to miss
Tyrod
at least
Taylor
2 quarters.
Gets hurt a lot.
Well, he's a backup quarterback. You want him in there for a game or two if Rodgers gets hurt. And the chances of that happening are probably small, but coming off an Achilles injury, 40 years old, could be something. I'm not saying it is. It could be something. But I think this season, there's not as much hype at the moment because Rodgers right now doing ayahuasca trips with Jordan Poyer. But I think that a realization struck that Rodgers, he is human. While he tried to come back from an Achilles injury 5 months after tearing it, that was unrealistic. I don't think he's going to run for a political offense.
He should be in pretty good shape now. He was almost ready to play at the end of last season, so he's got to be fully recovered now, I would think.
You would expect that, but I don't think he's going to run for political office. I don't think he's going to do none of this, off-season BS that people are spewing about what he could and can't do. I think Rodgers is going to be focused. Now the question is, will he run into a brick wall by himself by stuff he says off the field and brings it, on the field, which could potentially be a situation because he said back in January he wants, all of the external things to just be silenced, just for the Jets to focus on the Jets and then playing football. Lo and behold, he's the root of some of those problems. Can he tone that down? Maybe. But what I do think is interesting about, these moves is I think the tables got turned a little bit. Rodgers had a lot of control over this organization. Now the Jets have bolstered their offense, fixed a lot of their problems. I think the table gets flipped a little bit and say, hey, Rodgers, we got you all these pieces. We got you this amount of talent. We helped you out, this much. Now it's up to you to play well. Because Robert Saleh, if they go down like 2-6, Robert Saleh is probably not even going to make it to the end of the year. I think Joe Douglas, the question is, will he be out of there as GM? I don't know. But to be able to, get some of these pieces, my guess would probably be no, because he has hit on a lot recently. Because we all know last offseason, the moves that they were making were not Joe Douglas's own decisions. They got a lot of Rodgers-friendly pieces. Randall Cobb, who hasn't been great over the course of his career in the past 3 or 4 seasons. He's not on the roster currently. And then Alan Lazard, Rodgers' piece over in Green Bay. He was probably the worst wide receiver in the entire league. I think he was the lowest graded by PFF. He's right now on the trade block. So I think right now this is the tables and the situation is getting flipped a little bit and say, hey, Rodgers, we're getting you all these pieces. Now you actually have to perform. Mm-hmm. So
it's interesting.
They're gaining control back.
I'll flip this a little bit with you, Nate, in terms of the discussion. Mike Williams to the Jets helped out the Chargers, who have really done quite a job here in terms of creating some cap space when they were once down over the cap by $45.8 million. Now they're under by $38.7. That's pretty amazing. I mean, what did they do? They got rid of Williams. That's part of it.
They traded Keenan Allen. They got rid of Mike Williams. They restructured Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, I believe. They had to get off some major pieces, and they had to restructure some. So, I mean, the Chargers were already going to move off them. This is not a trade. They got rid of Mike Williams, a decent while back.
I wonder who the Chargers will pick up here with all the cap
It isn't going to be a
space.
pickup. It's going to be a draft situation. They draft 5th. My guess is they could trade back and still get a prominent wide receiver, because my guess is the Cardinals are going to draft Marvin Harrison. Then you could get Malik Neighbors. You can get Rome Odunze. You can get a lot of interesting pieces, because I do think Marvin Harrison will go first as the wide receivers go, but you still have a lot of options, because the Bears could still draft a receiver if they want. They could draft a tight end. The Giants could go with their quarterback, or they can go wide receiver, or offensive lineman if they want to go that route. Although they're trying their best to fill in some gaps when it comes to Illuminor and Runyon, I believe his name is. So they're trying to sign a couple pieces here. So this is an interesting one for the Jets though, because they have the number 10 pick. Are they going to go offensive lineman because Tyron Smith's only on a 1-year deal? Are they going to go wide receiver? Because right now your wide receiver 3 is actually a punt returner and a kick returner. Are they going to go draft one of the top one? Are they going to go backup quarterback? Probably not, but could they bolster their defense and pick one of the top defenders? I don't know. Because before these two moves with Tyron Smith and Morgan Mose, it was they're going to draft whatever the best offensive lineman is available. Now it's we don't have to. They could trade back. That is something that the Jets could do.
Mm-hmm. What number do they have again?
Number 10 right now.
That's a pretty good pick. That's pretty high.
This is the draft order if you wanted to look at it.
Yeah. So, Bears, Commanders, I know those first 4, right? I know those. I don't know what the Patriots are going to do now. They say they don't like Drake May. Right? They're not high on him.
It's a topic that we're going to talk about later.
It looks like, I think the Commanders are going to take the Daniels.
They could.
And Caleb Williams is going to the Bears for sure, unless they take Daniels. I don't know. We'll see.
There's no shot the Bears don't draft Caleb Williams. Caleb, right now the odds are minus 4,000. So
they aren't going to draft him, or
no, they are. They are. It's minus 4,000 odds.
Put that back up there. I didn't get down to the later round.
The only one is just really the Jets.
How about the Giants? What do you think they do?
Well, we have a Giants topic.
Oh
later.
Yeah, that's right. The Titans, they won't go for a quarterback, right? They've got Mac Jones now.
The Titans don't. The Jaguars.
Oh,
do.
the Jaguars. I'm sorry.
They got Will Levis.
The Titans got
Levis.
They got Rudolph. They have Rudolph
Yeah,
too.
but they're
Mason Rudolph.
They're starting Will Levis.
Yeah, but I bet you know what, Nate? I predict Rudolph will get a chance.
No.
I bet he will be in there. You wait and see. Before the end of the year, I bet he'll play a game.
Is that because Will Levis gets hurt or because Will Levis sucks? Because you can't. Here's the thing. You can't say he'll play because Will Levis gets hurt. He's our starter because Will Levis plays terrible.
I think that might happen. We'll wait and see. The Bears, they're in good shape, 1-9, right? You think they'll trade down the 9th pick to something else?
No.
And the Jets at 10. I'm not sure who the Jets would take now. As you say, the offensive line looks set. They set at quarterback. It looks like they're set at wide receivers. Tight end. Who do they have? The Jets. For
the
tight
Jets,
end.
They got Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
Not a big
it wasn't
name.
bad.
I don't know who the Jets will draft now. Maybe they'll go defense.
They could, but their defense is ranked 4th last year.
Yeah.
So, who knows? All right, we're going to take a break, but coming up, supposedly, according to Jerry Dulac, Russell Wilson will be getting an extension after the 2024 season, I guess barring performance, but it looks like the Steelers are interested in making Russell Wilson their long-term starter. And also, the Giants have a quarterback situation potentially with signing Drew Lock and apparently never offering Russell Wilson the starting job. You know, who will actually be their starting quarterback in 2024? We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the content.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, according to Jerry Dulac, it looks like the Steelers could be an interesting situation because they are, according to Jerry Dulac, looking to extend Russell Wilson at the end of the season, I guess, barring performance. A very similar move, but a better move that the Broncos made when they signed him to a massive extension before he even played a single snap. But it looks like the Steelers are sold on Russ being their long-term starter. I want to know, do you think the Steelers are potentially making a massive mistake since they already have Justin Fields, at least for this season? If they want his fifth-year option, they could at $25 million, but they signed him for some sort of reason. So do you think signing Russ would be a massive mistake at the end of this season?
Massive, I'm not so sure, but I do think it's a mistake. Why talk about that now? I mean, he's not done that well in the last 2 years. He didn't get along with Sean Payton. His first year was horrible with Hackett. Although Hackett, they canned him. And he said he was hurt in his first year a little bit. He had a lat issue, and that was a little, I don't know. That's kind of sour grapes, I think, to blame some of his performance on that. But maybe he was hurt. The last year he did okay, but as you pointed out in his stats, he's dinking and dunking. He wasn't really going down the field. It helped make his stats look a little better than they might have. His yards per pass were down, probably the lowest of his career or close to it. So he's a big question mark, I think. I think he's quite a big question mark. Getting him for $1.2 million, that's a steal, I think. And the Steelers did it again. They have the right name, the Steelers. But I think telling him now and giving him hope that he's going to get a long-term deal. He says he wants to play 7 more years. He's 36 years old. the way he plays, I don't think he's going to make it that far. So I don't know why they would give him hope right now. You got to get out there and prove yourself again rather than think, hey, I play okay. They're going to give me a long-term deal. I'm going to be here for the rest of my career. I don't think that was the right thing to do, to put that out there at this early stage.
Well, I've been critical of Russ ever since last season, or 2 seasons ago when his first year with the Denver Broncos, where I said this is more of a trend, not a blip when it comes to his performance, because they're like, oh, Nathaniel Hackett's on the team, not great. That was an Aaron Rodgers signing. And then this season, he looked better, but when you look at actually what he's doing, it's like, oh, he's playing it safe. He's conserving a touchdown-interception ratio. His performance on the Steelers, though, I think is going to be very, very difficult to succeed in because the Steelers, since Big Ben retired, they have been an anemic offense. Nearly dead last in every single category, at least offensively. Points per game, they're 28th. Red zone percentage, they're 26th, as well as passer rating, they're also 26th. Passing yards per game, they're 27th. And passing touchdowns, they're dead last at 25th. And I think that could be due to Kenny Pickett not being a great quarterback, getting maybe overdrafted completely, having the lowest touchdown percentage in the NFL history when it comes to 300 quarterbacks who throw 500 or more passes. He was the lowest of the bunch. So Kenny Pickett's just not a good quarterback. He went over to the Eagles. But Russ coming into the system that I think it could be fascinating to watch, but I don't think it's going to lead to massive success because I'm going to stay on this boat until Russ puts up another great performance, which I don't think, the way that the Steelers are currently constructed, that they're actually going to be able to put up a monumental performance, at least as a team. So basically, they haven't had a great rush attack. They've had a slightly above average one. So in 2022, their rushing attack was ranked 16th, so that's dead even with the middle of the pack. And then last year, they were 13th, so a little bit of an improvement. Russell Wilson over his entire career has performed his best when his rushing attack has been top 10. If his rushing attack's not top 10, he does not perform very well. When it's the let Russ cook, his passing attempts, the highest he's ever had when it comes to the league rankings, was literally middle of the pack at 16th, and he did it twice. In 2017, when they were, I believe, 9-7, the Seahawks were, and then in 2022, when the Broncos were one of the worst teams in the NFL, he also had 16 pass attempts. Or he had the 16th most pass attempts. His best seasons are when they won the Super Bowl, at least made it to the Super Bowl. They had a top 5 rushing attack. In his career, he's had a top 1 rushing attack twice, and they performed very, very well. So if Russ doesn't have help running the football, and he did when he had Marshawn Lynch, and especially a phenomenal defense like the Legion of Boom, which I think the Steelers, they have an okay defense. Yardage-wise, they give up a lot of yards. 21st in total yards given up, while only 6th. They do really, really well in not allowing teams to score. They're 6th in points allowed last season. So if Russell Wilson has a really good defense and a really helpful running attack, he performs okay. But if you have to rely on Russell Wilson to throw the football a lot, that's where you don't find a lot of success. You could argue that Russell Wilson's best years of his career were the first 4 years when they had the Legion of Boom, and guess what his pass attempts were? 32nd his rookie year, 31st his sophomore season, 32nd that third year in 2014 when they made the Super Bowl, again after winning it the year prior and up against Brady, who had a great fourth quarter and won that Super Bowl. And then in 2015 when he was 28th. The rushing attack they had was 3rd, 4th, 1st, and 3rd. His defense, Legion of Boom, was 4th, 1st, and 2nd. So the recipe for Russ to succeed long-term is to have a phenomenal defense and a phenomenal rushing attack. You can't have average of both, and we've seen that the past couple seasons. I mean, even then, his first season with Denver, they had the 7th best defense in the NFL. And they were horrible because Russ didn't perform very well, and their rushing attack wasn't great. I think this is a slightly better plan than what the Broncos did by giving him an insane 5-year extension after he didn't play a single snap for him. So this is a little bit better. But the major question is, what the hell are you going to do with Justin Fields? You signed him. You traded for him. You gave up literally nothing to get him.
Yeah. So
because what are you going to get with a 6th-round pick?
Yeah, I don't think they'll give him the 5th round, the 5th year option. That's due on May 2nd. They're not going to make that kind of risk here this early on before he even plays a snap, and give him how he's done so far in his career. I bet he won't get that.
So the question is, are they going to extend him long-term at a much lower price, or like we thought this year, would a team be desperate enough to maybe overpay for him?
Yeah. No one's going to know. I mean, he's not going to play next year unless Russell Wilson gets hurt. So they'll
I
just
think it's unlikely.
They'll just remember that he was lousy in Chicago. So I don't think there'll be much of a market for him out there. So I don't think they take much of a risk by not signing him to the 5th-year option. I mean, it's been a lot of action at quarterback for the Steelers this year. Russ in, Pickett out, Fields in, Rudolph out, Trubisky out.
Yeah.
That's a lot of movement.
Deontay Johnson out.
Deontay Johnson out.
And you're placing with Van Jefferson, who I don't think is comparable, but, some people who like Van Jefferson,
yeah,
they
the
say
other
he's
thing
okay.
I'd say, Russ playing it safe in his second year in Denver. George Pickens, he's not that kind of receiver. He's not a dink and dunk guy. He's a deep ball guy.
He wants the numbers.
Yeah.
He wants the receptions. He wants
he's
the
a
numbers.
good receiver for the deep ball, too. He may wind up frustrated in that offense.
Well, he was frustrated last season. I can understand it. The offense was horrible. Like I said, lowest touchdown. Kenny Pickett has the lowest touchdown percentage in the entire NFL history of quarterbacks who throw it 500 or more times.
Yeah, well.
Under 2%.
They may regret letting Mason Rudolph go.
I want to preface this. I don't think Mason Rudolph is a starter, but I think he's an okay quarterback.
Yeah, he did okay for them.
He went 3-0 and looked pretty good at the end of the year.
He really came in there and said, hey, you know what? I got what it takes.
And Najee Harris has improved last season. Jalen Warren looked pretty good last year as well. I had him on my fantasy team. I think he was okay. But this is not a Saquon or I think Swift might do very, very well this year. He's not, any one of these top Josh Jacobs. He's not one of these top running backs.
You don't think Najee Harris is a top running back?
I would say he's fringe top 10. And that might be fringe top 10.
Fringe
I think
top
right.
10 makes him a top running back.
I mean, I'm talking about, upper echelons. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley. I think Jonathan Taylor went
How many yards did Najee Harris have last year? I think he was close to 1,000, right?
Najee Harris last season had 1,035.
Okay. And the year before that, he's a 1,000-yard rusher.
He had 1,000 yards every single
season. To me,
season.
That's an elite running back if you have 1,000 yards every year.
In today's NFL, which is a lot of offense, it's not the NBA where there is no defense. It's just the way that the NFL is set up, it's very offense-orientated.
I think there were a lot of games I watched this year where the defense is dominated.
What about hits? You can't hit. You can't hit a guy too high. You can't hit a guy too low. You got to hit him basically in one single target spot, and if you miss it, a flag's coming out, especially against quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, they have softened that up a little bit. I think that's a good thing, right? With all the concussions and everything that guys were getting.
Yeah, it's for health purposes, but I'm saying just like the stage of the game is very, very
There's still a lot of
offense-oriented.
violence out there in the NFL.
Because it's the
for sure.
NFL.
That's what people like.
Well, yeah, because it's the NFL. You hit people. But, like, for instance, Russell Wilson's currently on a team with a defensive head coach, a defensive-minded team that has very good offensive weapons, but the amount of production they get out of them is very lackluster. Now, could it be Kenny Pickett just really isn't that quarterback? That very well could be it. Very well could be it. But I don't think this team overall is that great. I think the defense, to some people, might be a little bit overrated. The numbers say that the 21st ranked defense in the league. I think what's fascinating is that while they do have Najee Harris, they're not even in the top 10 in run blocking. They are currently, based on the numbers, last season they were 31st in pass blocking. Russell Wilson with no offensive line, no real great run game, and barely any time to throw. Yeah, we saw what that looks like. That was 2022 Broncos, where he was getting slaughtered out there. I think he got sacked 55 times.
Maybe they're going to make the offensive line a little stronger here
they're
through the draft.
They're the 20th pick in the draft. Can you get one of the top? And I think this is a very heavy wide receiver and offensive lineman draft. So you could very well get a B+ to an A- offensive lineman at pick 20 and then build him up to an A to an A+, at least for your team fit. That very well could be the case. Arthur Smith as your OC, is it better than Hackett as your head coach teaching you? Yeah. But is he better than Sean Payton teaching you? No, he's not. Because Sean Payton didn't get fired. Arthur Smith just did. So I'm sticking with my guns. Russell Wilson, I think this is the big question. They went 10-7 last season. Do they win more or what's more likely? They win more or fewer games?
I think it's about the same, actually, to be honest.
If Justin Fields was out there, do they win more, the same, or fewer?
I'm afraid
because people are saying he's a first round, he's worth a first round pick.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid
Clearly not.
I'm afraid it might be a game fewer.
A game fewer. So you say
9.
So you say basically it's a wash, depending on who the quarterback is.
I think
9
it
and 8
is.
to 10 and 7. It's a wash basically. I mean,
What's the schedule look like? Steelers' schedule.
I don't have their opponents up, but I can grab them real quick. But still, and by the way, even with the acquisition of Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl odds for the Steelers didn't move with Kenny Pickett or to Russ. It didn't move an inch. So even Vegas is telling you that it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. This team, when it comes to they play in an extremely tough division. They play in the harder conference. You're playing up against some of the top defenses in the league last year, the Browns and the Ravens. You got Joe Burrow back, hopefully going to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Browns with another acquisition of a wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy. Lamar Jackson coming off an MVP season.
No, that's why I'm saying I don't think they do better than that. And winning 10 games in that, when you're in that division, is going to be tough.
It is.
Right?
And this is not a favorable schedule either.
Tell me.
So let's go with the 3 teams in their division on the road. So that's the at Browns, at Cleveland, at Baltimore.
I don't think they win any of those.
So that's 0-3 immediately. And then the other away teams are at Broncos, playing his old team.
They'll win that one.
Okay, so that's 1-3. At Raiders.
They'll win that one.
At Eagles.
No, I don't think they win that one.
You don't think they win that one?
No.
Okay.
I think the Eagles are going to be good this year.
At Falcons already? Did I say that one?
Falcons? That's a tough one.
You think Kirk Cousins is going to light up the
It's at Falcons.
At Falcons, correct.
Yeah, I don't think they win that one.
At Colts.
They win that one.
Okay. And then what are we looking at? So you have 2 wins so far?
3.
3 wins. So let's go now with the home teams. They play the same teams, the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns.
I think they win 2 out of those 3.
So you're going 5 so far.
Yep.
5 wins.
Yep.
Chiefs.
No.
Chargers.
Yes.
So that's 6
win.
Cowboys. I'm surprised you're thinking this hard about
This is at home, right?
This is at home. The rest of these are at home.
I don't think they beat the Cowboys.
Smart choice. Giants.
They'll win that one.
That was the fastest answer you've had so far.
Okay, they got 8 wins
And
now.
then finally, the last game, the Jets. Home against the Jets.
Home against the Jets, I think they win that one. That's 9 wins.
9 and 8.
Somewhere else they're going to get one more win, I think.
So you
Russ is
say
out
they
there.
don't move an inch.
No, they don't. I don't think so.
Well,
Look at that schedule. It's terribly hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And pair that up with an anemic offense the past 2 seasons since Big Ben retired.
They're lucky they don't play the Patriots next year.
Russell Wilson may choke against them like he did last season with the Broncos.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it doesn't make sense.
It's
'cause
9
why
or 10
sign
wins.
Fields?
It's 9 or 10 wins. And I think if that's what happens, I don't think Wilson gets a long-term contract with them. He might sign him one more year.
But then, okay.
Nobody else is going to want him. Who else is going to want him?
I mean,
If he doesn't make them better, and they won 10 games with a rotisserie of quarterbacks.
Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Kenny Pickett. Yeah.
And Mason Rudolph is the one that got him into the playoffs. So, if he can't do better than that, why would he get a long-term contract?
Because he's Russ. It could be Russell
I mean,
Wilson.
I think to me, it's a little bit exciting that he is going there. To me, that fan base is probably excited about it, and it is a little bit exciting because Russell Wilson, over his whole career, has been an exciting quarterback and won a Super Bowl and played in 2.
Yeah.
Threw an interception at the end of the second one that sealed the Patriots' victory. Yes. So it is a little bit exciting, and I think even Justin Fields going to the Steelers, to me, that's interesting. It's interesting. But are they going to win more than 10 games? I don't think so. And should Russell Wilson get a long-term contract if they don't win more than 10 games? I don't think so.
Well, and then here's the big question: if Russell Wilson is your, let's say the report is true, and Russell Wilson is their long-term answer, why the hell did you trade for Justin Fields anyway on the technically last year of his contract? They could do the 50-year
because you got him
option,
for nothing, a 6th-round pick.
Right now, they're paying both quarterbacks a total of $4.5 million.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, that's a deal.
Yeah,
that's a deal.
You have 2 very talented quarterbacks at $4.5 million total. Yeah. So it's a very low risk,
potentially talented, I would say nowadays. With Russell Wilson, 36 years old.
Fair.
And,
previously talented.
Yeah.
Previously
shown and Justin Fields showing some sparks of talent, some flashes
YouTube highlights is what I call them. No, here's the thing. No,
I mean, maybe they put him in. You know what? Maybe
YouTube.
they put him in there. Maybe they have both of those guys.
Well, like
in
wildcatted out.
No, Justin Fields running the ball.
They did that with Trey Lance in his
he's a
rookie season with the
1,000-yard
49ers.
rusher, right? Isn't Justin Fields?
Justin Fields, I believe, is rusher.
Yeah,
Yes.
so put him out there and play him in a wing back, some position like a slot, and whip the ball out to him, and he can either run or throw it.
So at that point, just make him a wide receiver.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Just make Justin Fields a wide receiver.
I mean,
make him a running back.
He's an athlete. He's an athlete.
Yes, no, Justin Fields is incredibly athletic, but he's not great at playing quarterback. So, like, for instance, okay, the only way that you would think Justin Fields is talented, there's two things, and I mentioned one of them earlier. There's two reasons why you get Justin Fields and don't sign Russ. One would be he's the quarterback of the future, so they're going to sign Justin Fields to his fifth-year option at $25 million, and then at the end of it, extend him long-term. Or two, you think Russ is going to play horribly, and so you're going to put him in middle of the season or towards the end of the season anyway. Otherwise, why is he there on a one-year deal? Both quarterbacks are on a one-year deal. Are you going to say, okay, Justin Fields, we're not going to play him in the game, but if he looks good in practice, we may do something with him, whether it be trading him or putting him in next season. But we need to sign him to a fifth-year option or sign him to a long-term deal at that point.
I don't think they're going to sign him to a fifth-year option because nobody, if he doesn't get on the field, everyone's going to look at him and say he was lousy in Chicago. And now it's 1 year later. We never saw him play. We don't know whether he can do anything now or not. So they won't have any trouble signing him after this season if he never plays. If he gets in there and he plays 51% of the snaps,
which
and
is not going to happen,
they move up to a fourth-round pick and he plays very well, then they'll wish they'd given him the fifth-year option. But I don't think that's going to happen.
This trade and just the acquisition, everything surrounding it, being told that Russ is the definite starter, Justin Fields has no real shot at competing for the job, it doesn't make a lot of sense because unless you're basically saying you're probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL and we want to keep it that way, there's no real other reason you would sign him. Unless you think Russ is washed and you're just doing this just for the sake of signing to that 1 year deal.
Maybe you give it. Maybe it's to send a signal to as a shot across the bow to Russell Wilson. Say you better come in here.
You're in the hot seat, big guy.
You're in the hot seat.
Yeah.
You could wind up you could be the backup. And I read some articles that might be the thinking of the Steelers. I think they did. I think the Steelers this was a smart move for them. They're definitely better than they were with Kenny Pickett, I think.
Yes.
And letting Mason Rudolph go, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe he should have been the backup.
Then how about this? If you think he's better than, do you think both quarterbacks are better than Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson?
I think that I think potentially Justin Fields is a much better quarterback than Kenny Pickett,
and then Russell Wilson definitely is.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so let's say in the first 12 games, let's say Russ is the starter first, then we'll do both situations. Will Russell Wilson win more than 7 games in the first 12? Because that's what Kenny Pickett did last season. He went 7-5 in 12 games.
Yeah.
Will Russell Wilson go better than 7-5 in the 12 games?
I'm not sure because when you showed their opponents, was that the schedule? Was that the schedule as it's going to be?
For who?
For the Steelers.
It's not week by week by week.
It wasn't week by week?
That doesn't come out.
I'd have to see the week by
months.
week because they have a very hard schedule. If those hard teams are lined up in the front end, he could not be at 7-5 by 12 games.
And then Justin Fields, same question. Will he win, more than 7 games in the first 12?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be on the field to even try it. I think it's going to be Russell
People
Wilson.
defended Kenny Pickett because Matt Canada was a crap OC, supposedly. He's gone. Now you have Arthur Smith. And if you're saying that
Arthur Smith was just fired as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
If you're telling me that Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields can't win 7 games out of the first 12, are you sure you got rid of the wrong quarterback? Are you sure you should have replaced him?
Getting off of Kenny Pickett was the right move.
I'm not disagreeing, but if you can't win 7 out of the first 12 with
I mean, they had Mason Rudolph came in and won 3 in a row for them. Looked very good doing it. It got the offense going, which was totally lackluster. Was horrible.
It was.
Right? And he made him look like a real offense. He kept moving up and down the field. He didn't do so bad in the playoff game either. So I think they should have hung on to him.
As a backup, probably. as a backup, probably.
Well,
I agree with
and
you.
then see if Russ, if he stinked it up, then you could put him back in there. Now he's gone. He's with the Titans, and he may have a good chance there. We'll see.
Yeah, I think while I like Will Levis and his talent, he's great arm, works the play action phenomenally. I do think he's still a massive question mark. Mason Rudolph ain't bad. Yeah. Mason Rudolph ain't bad. We already see him. We've already seen him display success in his career so far. Now, while it's very limited success, in the sense
and he was
not,
terrible the first time he got out there. When he first got out there, he was awful. Okay?
Well,
he got another chance, and he kind of redeemed himself. Yeah. I think the Steelers may regret not keeping him on the team.
They very well might, but you know what? The good thing about it is time will only tell us.
Time will tell.
So, Russell Wilson could get a long-term extension at the end of this season. Then why the hell
time will tell
would you trade for Justin Fields? All right, let's get into our final topic. This has been, we're talking about roller coaster with Justin Fields. How about the Daniel Jones circumstances? So, it came out as a report that the Giants never offered Russell Wilson a starting job when they met for their exploratory meeting. He was basically offered the backup job and only the backup job because the Giants apparently still believe in Daniel Jones as their starter. But we also heard apparently Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are completely done with Daniel Jones. John Schneider, the GM of the Seattle Seahawks, wanted to re-sign Drew Lock, who is now the backup of the Giants. But apparently he was told that Drew Lock went to the Giants because he had an opportunity to compete for the starting job. Drew Lock responded in the opening press conference for the New York Giants by saying this.
Daniel Jones is the starter of this team, and that's been conveyed to me. Now I need to come in and push Daniel to be the best he can be, and that's the role that I've played for Geno. That's the role that I played for Teddy. That's the role that Brett Rippon played for me when I was the starter in Denver. I've had both sides of this. I've been the guy to push a starter, and I've been the starter that's being pushed by the backups. It's all about making that room as best it can be, and if we do that, sky's the limit for this team.
Drew Lock. Sky is the limit, apparently. Currently the Giants hold the 6th overall draft pick in this year's draft, so they have a lot of options. Could go wide receiver, could go quarterback, could go offensive line if they still need help with that. There's a lot of options, but currently it looks like Daniel Jones is the starter in week 1, but I want to know, do you agree with that? Do you think Daniel Jones should be the starting quarterback in week 1? And if not, who do they go to?
I do. I do think that he ought to get a chance to be the starter because he lost his job by getting hurt with an ACL. So generally when you're the starter, you get hurt, you come back and have a chance to start again. That didn't happen when Bledsoe got hurt and Brady came in, but that was a totally different situation. But here, I think that Jones should get the opportunity to start. I think that he'll be on a short leash. If he performs like he did last year, he'll be out of there and Locke will be in there, I'm pretty sure. And for the fact that they're trying to create a quarterback controversy, the Locke will compete for the starting job came from the Seahawks GM. Yeah. Right? Not from the Giants. It came from the Seahawks GM, who was sour grapes, that he lost Drew Lock. And he could have hung on to him, maybe if he'd given him a contract that was any money at all, because Lock left for 1 year, $5 million. I mean, that's not much, right? So, and it's only 1 year. So I think that the GM for the Seahawks is maybe putting that out there because he's a little sour grapes. And I do think Locke, he knew he wasn't going to be the starter when he came here. They told him he had every opportunity to compete for the starting job. First thing he says is, I know I'm not the starter. I'm here to back up Daniel Jones and make him the best he can be. So I think that Daniel Jones will be the starter. I do think that unless he plays really well this year, which is probably doubtful, that he will be gone at the end of this year because they have a way to get off him. He's scheduled for $30 million in 2025, $23 million of that guaranteed, and it's got one of those injury deals in it like Russell Wilson had. So I think if you see him pay just average or not so good, and the Giants have a losing record, when you get near the end of the season, they'll bench him so he doesn't get hurt and kick in that injury money. Yeah. And Drew Lock will be out there, and Daniel Jones will be gone. That's my prediction.
Well, I agree with you. This will be Daniel Jones' last season, unless we see a 45 touchdown, 4,500 yard season, which
45 touchdowns? You don't think he would
there
hang on to
is
him with
no
30,
reason.
35 touchdowns?
There is no reason that Daniel Jones would stay unless we have of like a top 5 quarterback performance. Screw top 10, because people thought 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. If you want to add the rushing touchdowns, 22 total touchdowns and 5 picks was top 10 quality. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And you know what? He got paid like a top 10 quarterback. And look what he did year 1. 2 touchdowns, 6 picks. Offensive line getting sacked. Yeah, we saw 2 other quarterbacks, one that was an undrafted rookie free agent, run the offense better than Daniel Jones could dream of that season. Tyrod Taylor, a veteran who can't stay healthy, ran the offense better. Daniel Jones just could not perform very well, and he was just terrible through and through. What I do find fascinating, though, is that you mentioned it a little bit. The Giants are really playing their card. It's a very, very risky maneuver here this season. And I think the signing of Drew Lock's kind of fascinating. Because if Daniel Jones gets injured again, which based on his history, we could say that it's not that unlikely. He's dealt with neck injuries, hamstring injuries, ankle injuries. He's dealt with a lot. He just tore his ACL. What will happen is his entire 2025 salary becomes guaranteed, and it'll cost the Giants $41.5 million in the year that they can get out from under him. So this season is very, very crucial for the Giants to play Daniel Jones safe. And that's why I think Drew Lock, it sort of gives him that opportunity to play Daniel Jones cautiously. So what will we see? If the offensive line is a little bit better than dead last, so let's be generous, they're not going to have a top 10 offensive line. I'm not even going to say they have an average offensive line at 16. Let's say they have the 20th best offensive line instead of dead last. An improvement, a 12-point improvement, which is pretty good. I think we'll see a different Daniel Jones. We won't see him running and escaping the pocket and making a bunch of scrambles. We won't see that, or we at least won't see it as frequently as we saw it before. He'll remain a pocket passer and try to make that work. And then, I think it'll be what we've seen in the past 2 seasons with Derek Carr and with Russell Wilson, the last 3 or 4 games. If Daniel Jones makes it that far, which he might, but based on his injury history, doesn't look great that would happen. But if he does make it to the end of the season, I think the last 3-ish games, we may see Drew Lock in there strictly for injury purposes. So the Giants, because I think, and I'll stick to it, he needs to have an MVP. I'm not saying he needs to lead in the MVP conversation, but it needs to be, hey, Daniel Jones, how about this? Comeback player of the year. I'll be a little bit nicer. Not MVP, comeback player of the year.
You might be right on that one.
He needs to play that he's going to get some sort of accolade by the end of the season.
I don't think he needs 45 touchdowns to be.
He needs to play extremely well. He needs to play
4,500 yards. He's got to have 3,500 yards, so maybe 30 touchdown passes, and this is key. A lot fewer interceptions, no more than 7 or 8.
So based on that, he needs 300 more yards than he did in his top 10 MVP year, and he needs double the touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that's gonna.
I think that they'll hang on to him for another year. Do you think
that's possible though? Because I for sure don't.
I don't think so. I don't think so because in order for him to have a good year, the year before last, Saquon Barkley had a fantastic year, and they don't have that this year. They have Devin Singletary, and he's not the same back as Saquon Barkley for sure. They blew it there. They should have given the franchise tag to Daniel Jones and signed Saquon Barkley to a longer-term deal. It would have been a lot better. Then they would have been off Daniel Jones. They would have had the money to go out and compete for one of the other free agent quarterbacks.
Well, not only that, currently, let's say Daniel Jones finishes out the season, and let's just say based on the 17-game average, he went 1-5. So he wins, 2.5, 3 games by the end of the season, give or take? That's 6 games times it by 3. Yeah, he wins 3 games. That's the number 1 overall pick in the draft. It might be number 2. The Panthers, their record, I believe, was 2-15, which have the number 1 overall pick, get the top quarterback, and go 2-15. So they would have the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft if Daniel Jones just continued the trend that he had this past season. And lo and behold, what happens? They draft Jaden Daniels or Drake May. They get a top quarterback, and they could kind of hit the reset button on the quarterback position with a legitimate quarterback prospect. You drafted a quarterback from Duke. Duke's a basketball school, not a football school, at number 6 overall. You're not going to find a great quarterback from Duke 6 overall, arguably in the history of college football. It ain't going to happen. No disrespect to Duke, but you're not seeing a lot of Duke guys. I think there's Sonny Jorgensen, I believe, went to Duke. He's really the only guy, and he was in the 70s and the 80s. Like, once in 50 years you might hit. It's not a good trend. So to draft Daniel Jones that high when he wasn't great in college, that's on the Giants. And not only that, you give him 4 years, $160 million because of one good season. And that's the thing. I'm not even calling it good because it's just better than what he had previously. You put that season up against any of the really good quarterbacks or even just the good quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Would he break top 20? I don't think he would. I really you put him against, I'm not even going to include the top quarterbacks. People now doubting Jalen Hurts. You put him, for instance, Sam Howell had a better year than Daniel Jones last season. Sam Howell had no offensive line. And he still went 4-13.
Did Sam Howell get a job?
He is. He's a backup quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh.
Let's see. Aiden O'Connell had a better season this season than Daniel Jones did in his greatest season of all time, in my opinion. Like, you can go through bad quarterback performances. Deshaun Watson this season. Like, Daniel Jones' best season might not break the top 20 of any good quarterback season in the current NFL. Mm-hmm. And yet we're considering that top 10 quarterback. No. It's just you're blinded by the fact that he was so awful. And he just minimized the turnovers with the same amount of lackluster offensive production that's, something's here. But in reality, it's maybe 5% better than what he was.
Well, I think Brian Daboll's job is in jeopardy if
100%.
they have a terrible season. Yeah. And my prediction, who the next coach would be.
You still think Belichick gets a job?
I do.
No. I saw some recently. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight, so any of the top teams he wants to get away from. The Giants will be one of those.
I think he'll change his mind. Now, he thought he was going to be able to pick from the litter there and go where he wanted to go, and that didn't happen. So he's not in a position to be picky. If he wants to be a head coach again, he's going to have to go where the job is, and they offer it to him.
Let me get to my answer now. And I still don't think Belichick gets a job unless a team is. He's not going to be one. Let's say there's 6 coaches that get fired next season. He's not going to be one of the top 3 off the board, in my opinion. The Giants next season, just based on the contract, they'll have to go with Daniel Jones because you'd be paying him to sit on the bench. So my prediction is...
No, I agree with that.
They draft a quarterback at number 6. Let's bring up the draft board again. They draft a quarterback at number 6. So you're getting Penix, Bo Nix, or J.J. McCarthy. And my guess is the Vikings are going to be very, very fascinating and trained up to a top spot. I don't think the Giants would budge, so they might go to the 7th spot or the 8th spot because those teams don't need quarterbacks. They could use offensive linemen, but you could still get a pretty good offensive lineman at the 11th pick, which the Vikings currently hold. So my guess would be the Giants draft a quarterback, whether it's Nix, J.J. McCarthy, or Michael Penix, and my guess would be it's J.J. McCarthy, have him sit behind Daniel Jones, so Drew Lock's the 3rd quarterback, or just wherever you want to put him. Sit behind both quarterbacks or one, whatever you want to put him on the depth chart. But he won't start the game. He won't start any games. Let Daniel Jones ride into the sunset for the rest of the year, play as badly as he can, which is prone to happen. He's going to play probably poorly. And then you have your quarterback for the future right there in the building with a year under the system. And then Brian Daboll could argue, we're building for the future. We drafted my next prospect. Mm-hmm. I believe I can coach him up. But if they draft an offensive lineman, which is not a horrible draft choice because their offensive line is terrible, or if they draft a true wide receiver, whether it's Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, you have pieces in there for whatever quarterback's there, whether you stick with Daniel Jones, whether it's Drew Lock, whoever, they have a decent arsenal.
Yeah. Why did they go get Drew Lock anyway? Why bother with that? I mean, if they're drafting 6, they should draft a quarterback, a young quarterback, and have Tommy DeVito and the young quarterback duke it out for the backup job. Have Daniel Jones start. If he stinks, then the rookie gets a crack at it. I don't understand why they brought Drew Lock in at all. It doesn't make sense to me.
I think it's because Daniel Jones may not start every game. I think we could see a Russell Wilson and Derek Carr situation where the last 2 or 3 games, Daniel Jones will be benched, basically.
Okay, but why wouldn't you want the rookie to be in there then?
Well, that's a good question. That's a very good.
I mean,
might do
they're
that.
the 6th pick. They should be able to get a pretty good. There'll be a good quarterback there, or a good prospect.
It's not a top 3, but we could see a situation
No, but
where
if J.J. McCarthy's there, he might be a good choice.
he wouldn't. He's not one of my top choices, but he wouldn't be a horrible choice. And I've said that J.J. McCarthy isn't a first-round prospect, but I never thought he was a horrible quarterback. I think he needs the right system to fit his strengths.
Yeah.
He can't face tremendous adversity. Otherwise, he might not be ready for it in year 1, which I'm not saying he'll never be, but year 1, it's tough. It is tough when you just came off of winning and a great culture.
What? If you're going to be a franchise quarterback, a lot of the franchise ones got playing time in their rookie year.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I got Drew Lock there. I see him as a third wheel if you're going to draft a quarterback.
I think that's it's a question of what if they don't. I think if
who else would they draft? I mean, who's going to be great that's there with all these quarterbacks that look good in this draft?
Right.
Who would you take over a quarterback if you're the Giants when you have big quarterback issues?
Well, it would be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. You could go Joe Alt,
maybe an offensive lineman. They're
Malik
terrible
Neighbors,
at offensive
Romo
line.
Dunze. I think it would probably be, and my guess would be, you're probably going to get an offensive lineman before you get a wide receiver. I could be completely wrong. Their offensive line isn't bad, but the fact that you still have Evan Neal there, and Neal was horrible, you either need to move him into a guard position, which he's a little bit better at, he can get more help there, or you just bench him because he was one of the worst offensive linemen last season. He was
big disappointment.
Massive disappointment. So I like your center. John Michael Schmitz is a good center. Andrew Thomas, he's their best offensive lineman easily by far. You did get a couple pieces. Aaron Stinney, who used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. John Runyon. You also got Jermaine Illuminor. I believe he played for the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. He was there early in his career. He played for the Raiders as well. You got a couple pieces. Question is, though, how are they going to play? You drafted Andrew Thomas high, and it took him a whole year and a half kind of to get to where he is now. So my guess would be just based on the contract you're paying Daniel Jones to play, you're going to start him.
Yeah, you're going to start him.
And then I would say if he's towards the end of the year, I'd put Drew Lock in there or the rookie. If they draft the rookie quarterback, put the rookie in there.
I don't know why they went and got Drew Lock. Doesn't make sense to me.
Could be because they don't trust Daniel Jones. I think they're showing their hand a little bit with Drew Lock. Now, I'm not saying Drew Lock's a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's a perfectly fine backup. But he did go in and lead a comeback drive against the Philadelphia Eagles.
My thought is if Daniel Jones is a bust early in the year and you want to bench him, you'd be better off with a rookie that was a high draft pick that has potential to be a franchise quarterback. Get him out there and get him some experience. And you'll still wind up, probably won't win many games because he's going to make mistakes and he's a rookie. And then you wind up with another high draft pick next year.
I think with Daniel Jones anyway, you're going to end up with a high pick if you start him. That's why I said, you draft an offensive lineman, you draft a receiver, let Daniel Jones play. If he sucks, which he's prone to do, you're going to have a top 10 pick anyway. Go ahead and get another receiver. Or rather, go get a quarterback. Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders. You have choices next season. They're not the level or the abundance that they are this season, but there are some decent talents out there.
Yeah. Okay.
The Giants, either way, they're screwed.
We'll see.
One of the best defensive lines in the NFL, but they're going to have to win games 7-3.
Yeah.
10-7. And that might not even be good enough if they only, give up 3 or 7 points. Who knows? But Daniel Jones. Drew Lock says he's the starter, but I agree with you. The Drew Lock pickup was a little bit interesting.
It is interesting.
And also the $41.5 million next season if he gets hurt. The Giants might be in a little bit of a sticky situation with what they've said versus the potential outcomes if Daniel Jones gets hurt.
Yeah. $
41.5 million when that's the year you can get off him. Unless you want to just destroy your cap for the next 2 seasons. Or next 3 seasons. So there we go. But yeah, I believe that is it for today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We thank you for your support as always. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the coach of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.